right? Even though the offense really took off last year, there still were some glaring issues on the O-line, especially once starters such as Andrew Nelson and Brendan Mahan went out with injuries, and they had to rely more on some of the younger players. And so, but they held together, and now they're being rewarded for it by returning several experienced players, including Nelson and Megan, will be back as fifth-year seniors, and then a couple redshirt sophomores, and Connor McGovern and Ryan Bates, who both last year. I'm sorry, McGovern will be a true sophomore. He plays a true freshman last year, but Ryan Bates, who redshirted in 2015 and could have very well started then, ended up coming in last year and just immediately took over the left tackle spot. So he'll be back. And under center, as far as who they're going to replace Brian Gaia with, who departed due to graduation, name to keep an eye out on is Michael Menitz. He redshirted last year as a freshman, but he was the second highest rated prospect in Penn State's 2016 class, and second best in Pennsylvania, only behind one Miles Sanders, who is going to be likely back up to Saquon Barkley this year before he becomes the main guy in 2018. And another guy, Will Friess, out of New Jersey, forced out of New Jersey. He's another guy who should crack the rotation and maybe even earn a starting spot at some point during next season, depending on how things go. The reason Friess and Menard are names to keep an eye on is because last year they were deemed good enough to play right then as true freshmen. And towards the end of the season, when the O-line was suffering from the injury bug, there were a lot of reports inside reports that the staff was strongly considering pulling their red shirts and using them, but they really wanted to abstain from doing that if they could. And thankfully, they were able to keep their red shirts and not have to burn them. So now they've got, still have 4 years at disposal, which to use them. Steven Gonzalez, another name to keep an eye on. He was also cracked the rotation, by mid-season. So there's definitely, compared to prior, really, this is the first time in the James Franklin era that you can say O-line not only isn't a weakness, but it's actually going to be a strength on this team. And that'll be huge as far as production for the offense, especially for Saquon Barkley. He would, to imagine him actually having frequent gaping holes to run through on a regular basis, it's hard not to be excited by that. At linebacker, now Jason Kabinda is going to be manning the middle, and Manny Bowen should surely be a starter. You can put those guys in red pen right now on the depth chart. But the third linebacker spot, it's probably be a battle between Cam Brown and Koa Farmer. Brown would probably have the advantage at this point, but that's something to keep an eye on. Also, D-line is another place to watch. Evan Schwann left due to graduation, and then Garrett Sickles somewhat surprisingly left for the NFL draft when he still had another year of eligibility left. The reasons as to why are a little bit unknown, but Shane Simmons is one name to keep an eye on. He probably could have played last year. Could have been like a third down, rush the quarterback type, for those types of situations. Shareef Miller is another name to definitely keep an eye on. He played last year and had as a redshirt freshman and made some, definitely made an impression with, the little playing time he got. But he's a guy expected to see even more action this season. Daniel Joseph, kind of a dark horse name to put out there. He was a 4-star kid out of Chicago whose commitment was kind of off the radar. I remember when the date was announced he committed. It wasn't like a name that normally these guys you hear they're trending for a school, but his was kind of came out of nowhere. But he's very athletic to get the guy as well. He could provide a rushing threat off the edge as well. So that's another name to keep an eye on. Surely I think Kevin Givens will play an increased role on the team. He should definitely be a full-time starter this year. Givens is best known probably for stuffing JT Barrett on 4th and forever to preserve the upset over Ohio State last year in Beaver Stadium.
Cornerback position seems to be nailed down with John Reed and Grant Haley. Marcus Allen, one of the best free safeties in college football. Penn State's defense, despite some linebacker issues and some injuries in that unit early last season, obviously played extremely well down the stretch. Tim Aydin from Black Shoe Diary setting us up for Penn State spring practice in just a few weeks, looking at the offense, looking at the defense, and those positional units that are still up for grabs. Tim, we appreciate the time.
Oh, thanks for having me.